Access to information without having the knowledge or the wisdom is dangerous. Happy teams are a lot more productive than successful teams. The question is, are you taking the time out to think about this and prioritize? Every organization has a different level of maturity. You're not building the individual's career, you're actually building a home.
Welcome to ValueMatrixTV, where we are bringing unfiltered voices and strategic thinking to build better workplaces. I'm Roydon Cerejo, and joining me today is Sahil Nayar, HR leader and influencer. Welcome, Sahil.
Thank you so much, Roydon, for having me today.
Sure. So, Sahil, I just want to start off with, in the past few years, we've seen a dramatic shift in the way organizations are approaching talent, as well as HR leaders, the way they're looking at hiring, right? So, what are some of the biggest shifts that you've seen in the past 5 years?
I think, Royden, that's a very potent question because what we've seen in the last 5, 6 years has been something that has been very unprecedented, right? No one ever anticipated that all of us would actually be under house arrest in
True.
some form or shape, and that too without our willful objective, right? I
Yeah.
think three things have shifted. One, everybody who was traditional, old school, and believed in pen, paper, believed in having people sit in front of them, believed in having important people sit outside their cabins because that's when they could monitor work, so to say, were forced to actually start trusting people a lot more because you were just distanced physically. So that was the first tectonic shift that I saw. And while we were grappling with it because we didn't prepare for it and we were just thrown in the deep end of the ocean, I think that was the first mindset shift that happened to say, work has to happen. We have embraced technology, but what's happening to the trust equation, right? The second shift was because all of us were so adept with technology, we embraced it so beautifully. Many people also learned to crack the code. So when it came to interviewing and recruiting, there was so much technology available that I could look at you straight in the eye, Royden, but I could actually have a second screen, I could have a laptop, I could have a mobile phone, I could have a prompter. And very quickly, Gen Zs or even others mastered the art of looking through the eye and giving answers without realizing whether the other person knew whether you are actually answering or looking at some text and answering,
Correct.
which brought us to the second mindset shift, which led to a challenge on the trust equation to say, can I trust this person? And people then said, okay, now share your screen. I want to see what your screen is showing. And then people built another technology where I could share my screen, but you could still look at another whiteboard and answer,
Yeah.
and you would not get to know, right? So I think the depletion of trust actually happened at a very rapid pace because technology overpowered logic, right? And that brings me to my third mindset shift, which is about ethics, right? We all have technology. You have the dark web. You have so much happening out there. But where are your own principles and your conscience to really realize where should one take a pause? And I think that is very important. And I think before we could master this wave, which is an employee wave, we saw COVID wave one, wave two, and very quickly the next mindset shift happened where we moved from an employee's market to an employer's market. So we saw where candidates who had 3 to 4 offers and would actually negotiate not on their current CTC because they were during their notice period, but they would negotiate on the fifth offer that they had. Suddenly today, we're saying, hey, you know what? I'm without a job. I've been sitting at home for 3 months. I've traveled the Himalayas. I've had Maggie. I've done what I wanted to do on my bucket list, but now I want to work because I've run out of money. And
Correct.
then we saw employers saying, okay, karma, payback time, I will take you at 80% lesser than your current comp because just 8 months back, you were sitting at that comp, and I don't think you have the skills that allow for this kind of a delta on comp.
Correct.
So I think rationalization on comp and total rewards happened in 23, 24. Let's fast forward to today. I think today, if you look at the geopolitical situation, if you look at what's happening around the world, if you look at, we all get up not with the plan that we slept with. And
Yeah.
therefore, when we all are getting up every single day with so many different nuances in a true VUCA world, with so much of uncertainty, with so much of ambiguity, the real question is, are our fundamentals right? As organizations, are we getting our fundamentals correct to say, am I recruiting right? Am I recruiting at the right cost, at the right time, the right number of people? Because otherwise, I'm going to have a bench that I can't afford very soon. And even candidates have become so intelligent, saying that we've done our short term gains, we've built our money bags, but
Yeah.
now is it even a not even long term perspective, but even a mid term perspective of saying, am I playing with my career or am I actually building for the future? So I think
Correct.
it's a mixed perspective over the years. I've just broken it down for you with 4 or 5 different mindset shifts.
No, that I mean, yeah, I think you've summed it up very well. And a few things that you've mentioned about, erosion of trust and the ethics part of it is actually a good segue into what is going to be my next question. So, AI is here in full swing. Organizations want to implement AI, especially even in the HR processes, to speed things up and also give a more maybe objective approach when it comes to the decision making. So, how do you envision sort of AI incorporating ethical AI frameworks, when it comes to maybe saying personalizing employee experiences and also keeping in mind that you don't want to compromise the privacy or sort of, amplify the bias that could be there in, talent management?
I think that's a very loaded question, Roydon, and I don't claim to be an expert on AI. But what I do see as a student of human resources and AI and the intersection of two of them is very clearly that the machine is learning faster than the human. Many a times you and I get onto platforms just to latch on to a nano banana trend and say, hey, you know what? I want to get my creative out there. I want to get my caricature out there. Or this is trending. Let me try this out, right? And I think intelligent people in different parts of the world send these nudges out just to train the machine. And you and I latch on to what is called as a fad,
Correct.
right? That's one. So let's consider that as segment one. Segment two, researchers across the world are very clear that AI is going to be here to stay. But the question is, and this is something that I've been asking for the last 5 years, is where does the role of AI stop? Because where the role of AI stops, my hypothesis is that's where the role of the human should begin.
Correct.
I see many people actually competing with AI. I think that's sheer stupidity. Because in the long run, anything that's repeatable, anything that's consistent,
Yeah.
AI will do a far better job. Because it's a machine at the end of the day, it's not human and therefore not prone to errors. Having said that it's not prone to errors, there is no single source of truth. And therefore, if Roydon says the sky is black, and there are 100 people saying the sky is black, and then 1 lakh people saying the sky is black, if Sahil goes and says no, but the sky is blue, AI is not going to pick it up because I'm going to get marginalized. And therefore, the question is, are you opening your eyes and even seeing what is the color of the sky? Or are you simply saying, oh, but I got this from GPT or I got this from this platform and therefore this is correct? The third reflection point is to say, great, I can open my eyes and I can actually figure out whether the sky is blue or black. But there may be certain technical areas where I may not have a perspective. And therefore, coming straight to your question, saying in the realm of talent management, in the realm of recruiting, or even in the realm of learning and development, if we get over indexed on artificial intelligence without having our basics in place, we won't be able to differentiate chalk from cheese. And that is my biggest fear. How do we bring the best of the past to hold true in not just the current domain, but also the future domain? I
So yeah, I think you made some really good points, Sahil, over there. I just want to sort of get sort of swing the conversation towards the candidate experience. During the hiring process, uh, there are times when the candidate obviously it doesn't make it, but then they don't hear back from anyone, and they almost ghosted, and it sort of puts them off that organization. So, as an HR leader or a talent acquisition leader, like how would you go about ensuring that the candidate experience is sort of positive throughout, even for the people who maybe don't make it, in the selection process?
think, Roydon, you touched upon a very important point because let's understand the problem statement, right? If you talk to any recruiter, a recruiter is going to say, listen, I'm extremely busy and therefore I don't have time for this. I know it's important, but I don't have time for this. If you talk to a different category of recruiters, they will say, absolutely. If I was a candidate, I would love to get feedback. I know it may not be always positive, but closing the loop is important. But you know what? My hands are tied because the hiring manager many a time says, let's put this candidate on hold, or I want to meet more candidates. Or you can say no to this candidate, but after a couple of weeks, when they don't get better candidates, they say, okay, let's revisit the candidate. In the world of today, where technology is at our fingertips, the whole question of being busy doesn't really hold through because you have applications, you have systems that allow you to connect and communicate with candidates almost real time. But the difference is, have we got heart in our communication? Or is it just a standard template that will go to a Rajiv, that will go to a Roydon, that will go to a Sahil? And at times, even the filter picks up Roydon and picks up Sahil instead of picking up Rajiv, right?
Yeah,
Or if I've got the filters right, or if I've got a generic email, does it sound, does the tone of the email feel like a system generated email?
right.
And that is another challenge that a lot of recruiters are grappling with. The
Okay.
third perspective is communicating is important.
Yeah.
Communicating with empathy is important, but I think all reliance on technology doesn't work great. And therefore, leading organizations today are investing in candidate experience teams
Right.
whose only job is to ensure that whether a candidate gets selected and becomes an employee or doesn't get selected, the experience of the candidate has to be top notch because they do understand and appreciate that if a candidate doesn't get selected, yet can be a potential source for more candidates to come in.
Correct.
A candidate who doesn't get selected can also be a fantastic brand ambassador for the organization to say, hey, you know what? I don't think I was cutting ice. I didn't make the mark. It was quite a tough interview process. But hey, you know what, buddy? You were far better than me in school as well. Why don't you give it a shot? Maybe you'll crack it, right? Instead of saying, you know what, I reached out to this organization and they're a bunch of idiots. They don't respond. They give some stupid, lame answers. You keep following up, they don't pick up the call, right? And I think cutting through that noise has become very easy today. Because earlier, I remember recruiters used to even complain of saying, "Hey, we don't want to give our personal number because candidates message at odd hours, ask stupid, crazy questions." And I think now all of that has just got so simplified. I think the real need is to understand your candidate's profile and customize your technology to build in the human aspect. And third, and not the last, is along with technology, have a human
Yeah.
to actually have conversations with another human.
Right.
Now, how to enable this is very difficult to answer in a conversation like this because every organization has a different level of maturity, has a different level of appetite on cost, budget, has a different approach to candidate experience. But all I'm saying is, irrespective of whether you're a small organization, a mid sized organization, a large conglomerate, it is possible. The question is, are you taking the time out to think about this and prioritize?
Right. I think, yeah, those are very important points. I think that HR leaders should consider. I was just going through your LinkedIn, Sahil, and I also noticed that you're a certified happiness coach, right, from Berkeley. I thought that was pretty cool. I just wanted to maybe if you can just share what are the learnings from there that you have implemented, or how has that certification changed the way you approach, people hiring, talent management?
Yeah, I think, as we grow in our leadership journeys, we
Yeah,
start realizing that as individual contributors, we've been amazing at a certain skill, at a certain role, at a certain task, right? The first milestone that we hit is when we all become managers, because now we are no longer responsible for being individual rock stars. We're actually now responsible for building a team that does really well. And the first reality that hits you is that not everybody is the same. And therefore, what many first time managers experience is conflict. Things that can get done very easily. And therefore, many managers say, hey, you know what, let it be, I'll do it myself.
yeah,
But if you have to do it yourself, then you should just be a great SME and not be
yeah,
a manager, because your role as a manager no longer is to do everything yourself. I was at a juncture in my career where I realized that I was just getting better at what I was doing, and I was continuously doing more of the same. And that's when there was an inflection point to realize that if I'm just doing more of the same, am I truly happy? And it took me a couple of weeks to come to terms with the fact and accept the fact, because many a times we find a lot of justifications and we find a lot of excuses and we find a lot of reasons to say no, but everything is good, let's look at the positive side of
yeah,
things, so on and so forth. But I realized I wasn't really very happy, and that's when I did two courses, one from Habitude, one from Berkeley, to actually understand the power of happiness at the workplace, because research has proven that happy teams are a lot more productive than successful teams.
right.
And many a times we don't pause enough to understand this distinction. And I think some of the nuances of this learning that I had was essentially about how do you create happiness among team members and happiness at the workplace, so
Yeah,
that maybe getting up on a Monday morning and jumping to work may be an exaggeration. But
correct.
even if work is what it is, how do you help people see meaning in that
Correct.
and align it through congruence with their personal goals? And the moment you can do some of that, I think motivation starts becoming a lot more intrinsic than forced through town halls or stand up comedy or beanbags or free food,
Yeah.
which lasts very limited. So, those have been some of my learnings.
I think that's a very interesting perspective. So I think one of my final questions would be if you were to give one advice to budding HR leaders or talent acquisition leaders starting out today, considering that we're living in a world where AI is going to be more prevalent, especially in the HR domain as well. What are the skills that they really should be focusing on or honing in on to be, sort of relevant of even a few years from now when AI is everywhere essentially? And it's always getting better.
Roydon, I think that's quite a loaded question. And, when people who asked me this even 10 years ago, Sahil, what's your piece of advice? I say the same answer even today. I don't think I'm qualified to give advice. I can only share a leaf from my life, what I have learned, and possibly if it helps you, fantastic. I think talent acquisition leaders, like doctors, live in a realm that is extremely powerful. Talent acquisition leaders are leaders of hope. Just the way when you have a family member being ushered into an operation theater, you actually look at the surgeon into the surgeon's eyes saying, please get my relative, please get my loved one back. Similarly, when an employee is applying or a candidate is applying to your organization, not just the candidate, but even the family is looking up to you with a great sense of hope, because you're not building the individual's career, you're actually building a home, you're building the family, because if that person is the source of income, The child is going to a great school because this person got a job.
Yeah.
The spouse is actually getting the husband who's ailing and earning money for the household because the husband no longer can work, and therefore the spouse needs that job so badly, right?
Correct.
You don't know what's happening on the back end, but I think if you're dealing with something as sensitive as hope, and if you think that every candidate is that family member of yours who's entering the operation theater,
Right.
you will handle the entire recruitment experience with care,
Yeah.
with empathy, and more importantly, with protecting the sense of hope. But if you treat it like just another CV or just another candidate,
Yeah.
it'll just stack up digitally or physically on your
Yeah.
desk. And therefore, it'll be one more paper, one more CV, one more interview, one more coordination, one more challenge to get time from business leaders to conduct the interview. But whereas if you embed the feeling of hope throughout the recruitment process and
Correct.
handle with care because it's fragile,
Yeah.
I think your entire demeanor, your behavior, your interactions will be a lot more humane. And that's my only request to all talent acquisition leaders, to
Yeah.
think of every CV as an agent of hope.
Wow, I think that's beautifully put, Sahil. I think we can end this discussion here today. Thank you so much for joining us on ValueMatrix TV for this wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much, Ryan. You've been fantastic. Thank you.
To our viewers and listeners, if you're passionate about modernizing HR and building better teams, head over to ValueMatrix.tv for more great content. Don't forget to follow us on social and subscribe to our podcast. Until next time, thank you for tuning in to ValueMatrix.tv, where we explore the future of work one insightful conversation at a time. Take care.